Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. We are continuing on with our coverage regarding the effects of Power of the Elements. As one of the most game-changing sets released in quite a while, it should come as no surprise that we've seen a ton of different buyouts and price spikes over the last couple of weeks, and technically the set isn't even officially out yet. We're probably going to continue seeing more and more price jumps just like these over the next little while, so let's just go ahead and jump right into the Market Watch. Kicking things off, let's take a look at Gizmak Orochi, the Serpentine Sky Slasher. Gizmak is a level 8 main deck monster with a pretty free summoning condition. You can special summon it from your hand or graveyard by banishing the top 8 cards of your deck face down, and then you can also banish 3 cards face down from your extra deck to pop an opponent's face up monster. The summon is a quick effect, but unfortunately the pop effect is not. Now this card used to be played in decks like Orchist, but now it's currently being used in Pure Punk. Specifically, it was featured as a 3 of in packs list featured over on his channel. The card has some great synergy with the Punk cards. It's a great card to discard with Foxy Tune or mill with Chaos Ruler since it can be summoned out of the graveyard for free. And then since it is a level 8, if they happen to DD Crow your Foxy Tune, you can special summon this card and still make the zombie vampire. Or if you can keep all 3 level 8 monsters on the board, you can just go into a Coach King Giant Trainer. Now in terms of price, it's mainly just the secret rares that have gone up in price. They were around $6 to $7 each, but they are now all the way back up to $17 to $20 per copy. Fortunately, you can still pick up the ultra rares for about $2 each if you just want a cheaper holo version, or you can grab the commons for a quarter or something, as they were recently reprinted in a structure deck. The card is only really used in the one strategy right now, so if you do have some Gizmaks lying around from back in the Orcus days, you may want to consider downgrading your rarities while the card is seeing some hype. The next card we have is kind of an obscure one. We have a Pointer of the Red Lotus. So I remember a couple of years ago, this was like an extremely popular card that saw a lot of side deck play, but over the last year or two, it hasn't really been used much at all. It kind of works like how Mind Crush used to. You get to pay 2,000 life points and you have to reveal your hand, so you have to have a card in hand in order to use this. But in exchange, you get to look at your opponent's hand and banish a card that you find there until your opponent's next end phase. Now, given how fast-paced Yu-Gi-Oh is nowadays, banishing an opponent's card from hand for 2 turns is basically the same thing as getting rid of the card for the entire game. This is a card that's starting to see some play in the OCG as a side deck card, specifically for its ability to hit cards like Dark Ruler No More, Lava Golem, and Sphere Mode from your opponent's hand before they have a chance to break through your board. Alternatively, it's easy to see how this card could be useful against decks that maybe like play a lot of hand traps, where you can hit that one starter out of your opponent's hand, leave them with just hand traps and extenders that they can't really combo with. A Pointer has only 1 holo printing as a super rare from OTS Tournament Pack 14. This card was only $1 or $2 when it wasn't really being paid much attention to, but now that it's peeking into the meta, the supers are at about $10 each. Fortunately, the card also has 2 other common printings that are under $1 each at the moment. If I were you guys though, I would make sure that you pick up a set of this card in whatever rarity you would like to use, getting rid of an opponent's card from the hand and learning about all of the options that they have available so that you can interrupt them at an optimal time. That's an awesome side deck card to have access to that I think will make big plays this format. Up next, let's take a look at Garuda, Wings of Resonant Life. Now this is a brand new card from Power of the Elements that is probably the most hyped up TCG exclusive card from the set. You can make this card by fusing 2 monsters with the same type and attribute, but different names. So without looking at its effect at all, it should be very clear that this is a pretty good super poly target against a lot of different archetypes, especially considering that a lot of them share common attributes and types. As for its effect, it deals double the battle damage to your opponent, which is kinda whatever. This thing only has like 1,500 attack points, probably not too relevant, but also if this card is sent to the graveyard from anywhere, you get to draw a card. That includes going from the extra deck straight to the graveyard, which makes this a great dump target with Ultimate Slayer to bounce an opponent's fusion monster back to the extra deck. This card has a lot of different applications, and I think it will be a staple in extra decks for almost anything that is able to run Super Poly. Now, for a bunch of the early pre-sales on Power of the Elements on TCG Player, Garuda was only around $5 each, and it was actually still down there just a couple of days ago. Now, however, the card has spiked out of nowhere, currently sitting at $15 each. The jump wasn't like gradual either, right? Within a couple of days, the card went from $5 to $10 and then $15. Really big spike, especially for an ultra rare from a recent set that hasn't really had a chance to prove itself within the meta. Only time is going to tell us if this card will stay up or come back down once the set releases and we see some tournament results with the new cards. However, in a set where these secret rare choices weren't all that great, we should expect the ultras to make up for that and carry a bigger chunk of the set's value. The next card we're taking a look at here is Psyframe Lord Lambda. So it has been a while since we've looked at this card, but this used to be a card that a lot of people wanted to run in their extra decks. Psyframe Gear Gamma was at one point being regarded as almost the best hand trap in the game, and because of that, people ran Lambda in the extra deck as a generic Link 2 option to end boards with, since it allowed you to use Gamma from your hand even if there are already monsters on your side of the field. So in the upcoming format, it looks like Gamma might be a really good hand trap option, negating a monster effect and actually destroying the monster. So getting rid of a monster like Halki Fibrax so that they can't actually do anything with it after, unlike a copy of Effect Veiler or Infinite Impermanence. So in Splite, you are locked into level, rank, and Link 2 monsters. Since you can't Link climb into something like Appaloosa, Lambda might be an option that's worth using if you happen to have a copy of Gamma in your hand. Now apparently Lambda has caught a ton of attention over this, and unfortunately the card only has one holo printing. The secret rare version came out in Battles of Legend Heroes Revenge and was actually short printed, so that version is now going to cost you about $20 each, which is kind of crazy considering that just a few days ago the card was literally like $5 to $6. Fortunately though, the rare version from Maximum Gold Eldorado hasn't moved at all, so you can still grab one for under $1. If I were you guys and I didn't have my own copy of Lambda, I would probably just settle for the rare in my own deck and wait for the secret rares to cool off before looking to bling out my extra deck. Next up, we have Ido, the Supreme Magical Force. So big shout out here to James S, who not only mentioned this card in the comments of the last Market Watch, but also gave an explanation for it as well. So this is a level 6 Dark Fiend monster. It has a kind of interesting, not really that great effect if it's destroyed, but the important part of it is the first line. While you control it, you cannot summon monsters at all. So the idea is that with the new branded trap card, Branded Expulsion, you get to put a monster onto each player's side of the field. Since Ido is a dark monster, you can dump it with Branded Fusion and then put it to your opponent's side of the field and it locks them out of the game. They can't really summon at all, right? So they can't even try to link it away, synchro it away, or even tribute it for a tribute summon. Rather, they have to try and pop it with a card effect, which not every deck is really able to do with all of their own monsters so easily. Crazily enough, this card is a whopping $70 on TCG Player at the moment, with copies actually selling at this ridiculous price. That seems really crazy to me. Then again, it only has one secret rare printing from a core set, that being Crimson Crisis, which came out back in 2009, so more than a decade ago. Now, even though the idea is cool, I don't think that this is a card that's going to see too much meta play or have an impact on the meta too much, so I personally would stay away from it completely. If you do happen to find a copy of this in your collection somewhere, I would absolutely offload it while its value is sky high, since a reprint will almost certainly bring this card back down into single-digit pricing. Up next is kind of a weird one. We have Fiend Comedian. So I saw some people talking about this card on Facebook and thought that it was just kind of worth mentioning maybe. Fiend Comedian is a really old card that can have two pretty interesting effects. You get to toss a coin and then call it. If you are right, you get to banish all cards from your opponent's graveyard. If you're wrong, you mill cards from your deck equal to the number of cards in your opponent's graveyard. In the Tearlaments deck, you probably don't mind getting either of these effects. You can banish all of your opponent's cards from their graveyards, so in the Tearlaments mirror match, maybe you can make it really difficult for your opponent to play, since they would lose a lot of resources out of the graveyard. Or you can mill a bunch of your own cards and trigger their effects as well. Now the unfortunate thing is that this is a coin flip effect, so if you really need to banish all cards from your opponent's graveyard to stop them from popping off, you only have like a 50% chance of being able to do so. Regardless though, there are probably times where you appreciate having either effect resolving. So right now, Fiend Comedian is only $1 or $2, but we need to keep in mind, this card only has one printing from way back in Legacy of Darkness. That is the 6th Yu-Gi-Oh set to ever come out back in 2004. So a lot of the copies that you see, they're probably really damaged or beat up. Finding a real near mint copy is going to be quite difficult. if we saw someone maybe top with the Tearlaments deck and they ran Fiend Comedian in the side deck, we could definitely see this card go up in price quite a bit. I guess technically we do have to worry about the card getting an OTS Super reprint, maybe an OTS Common reprint, or maybe even the Lost Art promo version, which would be really awesome. But yeah, for now, this is a card that is definitely worth setting aside from your bulk if you happen to find them, because it's definitely a tech that has a lot of potential. And finally, guys, the last card we're going to talk about for today is one that I think is really cool. We have Abyss Dweller. Specifically, the interesting one here is the ultimate rare version, which is of course the highest rarity of the card. Abyss Dweller is a generic rank 4 monster with a very simple effect. It has a quick effect where you can detach a material from it, and for this turn, your opponent can't activate any graveyard effects. So this card has seen play in a lot of different formats over the years, as it has been able to stop decks like Burning Abyss and Shaddolls and Dragon Rulers. Now, however, we are talking about this card being used against Tearlaments, which are a deck that is very heavily dependent on using the graveyard again, since that's where all the Tearlament monster effects are able to activate. Dweller is accessible in either the Exosister or Tearlament strategy, and making Dweller can be really devastating and difficult for your opponent to play around, so it's definitely an extra deck option that you guys will want to have available. Now, this card has a ton of lower rarity printings, including Supers, Ultras, and Gold Rare. All of those printings are still between $1 to $2, so nothing that's going to break the bank there. However, the ultimate rares from OTS Tournament Pack 13 are now up at around $80 each, which is a significant price jump up from the $60 that they were sitting at for quite a while. I'm pretty lucky. I happen to have a few copies myself, since I thought that they were pretty underpriced at $60, especially given how iconic the card is, how generically useful it can be, and the card's applications within older formats as well. I don't expect the ultimate rare will get that much higher, since Dweller is just a one-of, but regardless, Dweller is going to be a card that you will want to have access to this upcoming format, even if you are going to play it in a more affordable rarity. Alright everyone, that is it for today's episode. A lot of these are pretty out of nowhere. I remember thinking a couple days ago, I'd gone over everything that there was to talk about, and now, just a couple of days later, there's like a whole wave of other price jumps and everything. I guess that's just how the Yu-Gi-Oh market is sometimes, and I suspect that that's the way things are going to be for the next little while things are still so crazy with the release of Power of the Elements. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's market watch, please make sure that you let me know by slamming that thumbs up button for me. Also, make sure you leave a comment in the comments section down below. Let me know what you guys think about the cards that we talked about today, and let me know what other cards are trending on the market as well, so I can cover them in a future episode. Also, if you haven't already, do make sure that you hit that subscribe button to get all of the latest and greatest content from both Tombox and myself here on the channel. And until next time, guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.